It was 6:02 a.m. when Nkem's phone buzzed with a calendar alert. Max's school presentation. She opened her eyes to gray morning light spilling through the curtains. Her husband, Jide, was already gone for work, as usual. The scent of stale coffee lingered in the hallway. Max, her 14-year-old son, hadn't come downstairs yet. He was usually up before her. She knocked on his door. "Max, you'll be late." No answer. She entered. Max's uniform hung untouched on the closet door. His phone lay on the bed, screen cracked, earbuds tangled around it. Teenagers and their chaos. She picked up the phone to call the school. Max often saved numbers she didn't have. But as she unlocked it, a strange vibration startled her. A call. Ongoing. 47 minutes and 12 seconds. Nearly 48 minutes. A WhatsApp voice call. Still active. Connected. She froze. On the other end, faint voices, low and male. Two of them. Curious, she raised the phone to her ear. And then she heard it. She's so obsessed with that boy she doesn't even see what's happening under her roof. Good. That makes it easier for you. Just play the role. Make her think you're still her sweet son. Her hand trembled. Who were they talking about? And more terrifying, was one of them her son? Nkem stumbled into the hallway, phone still pressed to her ear. Her heart pounded in her chest. The voice on the other end continued. "She thinks I'm studying at night. Nah, that's when I go out. You know how easy it is to sneak out once she starts watching her pastor's live stream. You've mastered the double life." Laughter. No. No, no, no. She didn't recognize the first voice clearly, but it sounded like Max. Not the Max she knew, but a version with edge, arrogance, and coldness. She muted herself, stepped into the living room, and sat on the couch. Her fingers hovered over the red end call button, but she needed to hear more. She believes everything. All that "Mummy, I love you" nonsense? Just tactics. Make her feel like I'm still a child. Tactics? Tears welled in her eyes, but she stayed frozen. And your dad? He's too busy cheating to notice anything. Her breath caught. Jide? This was no ordinary rebellion. This was a conspiracy of silence, one she wasn't part of. Max entered the living room an hour later, school bag slung over one shoulder, hoodie up. "Morning, Mum." Nkem watched him. Really watched. His eyes were tired. Hands fidgety. "Was that cologne? Did you sleep well?" Yeah, sure." He reached for his phone. She didn't hand it to him. "Who were you talking to this morning?" His face froze. A flash of panic. But only for a second. "What do you mean?" There was a WhatsApp call still connected. Over 40 minutes. Voices I didn't recognize. He forced a confused laugh. "Oh, that? It was a group call. Gaming. You probably heard nonsense. Boys talk trash. One of those voices sounded like you. Saying terrible things about your father. About me." His jaw tensed. Then maybe it wasn't me. He reached out again for the phone. This time, Nkem let him take it. But not before she had already recorded the full call. Her eyes didn't leave his face. She felt a fracture forming in her understanding of him. A gap she hadn't realized existed. That afternoon, Nkem sat in her car in a quiet parking lot behind her church. Her fingers trembled as she replayed the audio. It was Max. It had to be. The intonation, the phrasing, the slouched sarcasm in his voice, all unmistakable. She forwarded the file to her cousin, Tola, a forensic audio analyst for the police. "Just confirm if this is Max's voice. Please. I need to know I'm not going mad." She waited, staring at the steering wheel, wondering what else she had missed. Her phone dinged. "It's him." I slowed the waveform and matched the inflections. "That's definitely Max." She blinked. Swallowed. She wanted to scream. To storm the school. To barge into his room and tear the truth out. But rage wouldn't give her answers. Only silence would. So she waited until he returned from school. "How was your day?" "Fine." "Homework?" "Done at lunch." "Did you sneak out last night?" He stopped. "What?" "Your shoes red mud." "It didn't rain here." He looked down. Caught. But said nothing. "I know you're not who I thought you were. I just want to understand why." He stared at her, then walked upstairs without a word. That silence? It told her everything. At 2:12 a.m., Nkem crept into Max's room. He was snoring. Peaceful. Innocent. She gently picked up his phone and unlocked it with Face ID. What she saw changed everything. A secret Telegram app. Username, Midnight. A private group, Sons of the Hustle. 200+ members. Teen boys. Anonymous. Talking about girls, lying to parents, avoiding school, manipulating family. Screenshots of forged report cards. Links to burner apps. And then, messages from Max. Told my mom I was at youth fellowship. I was on a bike with Lydia. Dad's cheating. I got proof. Might use it if he threatens me again. Mom? She's a puppet. Smiles and prays while the house burns around her. Nkem's hand trembled. Puppet? She backed out of the app and opened his photo album. Hundreds of selfies. Some with friends. Others, disturbing. Photos of her and Jide, taken secretly. Photos of their bedroom door at night. Even one of her crying after prayer. What was he doing? What was he collecting this for? She returned the phone and crept back to her room. She didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling, wondering when her son had become a stranger. Nkem didn't sleep that night. She lay there in the darkness, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling like it might give her answers. Something inside her had snapped, but not loudly, quietly. The way a thread frays before it finally tears. For 14 years, she had raised Max with all the energy she had. She had prayed over his meals, walked him to school in the pouring rain, fought teachers who underestimated him. And now he was someone she didn't recognize. She kept seeing those messages. She's a puppet. She doesn't see what's happening. He wasn't just lying to her. He was playing her. By 5:20 a.m., she was in the kitchen boiling water for tea, not because she needed it, but because rituals helped her think. She opened her laptop, logged into the hidden admin portal that controlled the family's shared Google account, and started scrolling through Max's synced backup files. Most of it was noise, school files, voice notes from class, TikToks. But mixed in were encrypted chat folders and anonymous usernames. She clicked one labeled burn_temp.zip. It was password protected. She stared at the screen for a moment and typed in his late dog's name, capitalized. It opened. What she saw wasn't normal. Inside the folder were scanned documents with blurred-out student IDs, resale lists of second-hand phones, and even receipts for crypto transactions in amounts far above what a 14-year-old should have. He wasn't just misbehaving. He was involved in something calculated. Something hidden. She leaned back, heart thudding, and whispered out loud. My son is running a business behind my back. But what kind of business starts with lies and ends with threats? At 2:12 a.m., Nkem crept into Max's room. He was snoring. Peaceful. Innocent. She gently picked up his phone and unlocked it with Face ID. What she saw changed everything. A secret Telegram app. Username, Midnight. A private group, Sons of the Hustle. 200+ members. Teen boys. Anonymous. Talking about girls, lying to parents, avoiding school, manipulating family. Screenshots of forged report cards. Links to burner apps. And then, messages from Max. Told my mom I was at youth fellowship. I was on a bike with Lydia. Dad's cheating. I got proof. Might use it if he threatens me again. Mom? She's a puppet. Smiles and prays while the house burns around her. Nkem's hand trembled. Puppet? She backed out of the app and opened his photo album. Hundreds of selfies. Some with friends. Others, disturbing. Photos of her and Jide, taken secretly. Photos of their bedroom door at night. Even one of her crying after prayer. What was he doing? What was he collecting this for? She returned the phone and crept back to her room. She didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling, wondering when her son had become a stranger. The next step wasn't rage. It was strategy. Later that morning, Nkem did something that most mothers wouldn't do. She called another parent. Not the school, not the police. Another mother. She reached out to Lydia's mother. Her voice was cheerful at first, almost too cheerful. But the moment Nkem mentioned Max, something shifted in her tone. Yes, Lydia had mentioned him. Yes, they were studying together. Yes, she knew something was off. But no, she didn't want to get involved. Nkem could hear the fear behind the politeness. That mother was choosing silence over truth, safety over honesty. And Nkem understood. But she couldn't afford to do the same. As she hung up, a thought occurred to her that chilled her to the bone. How many other parents were silently watching their children slide into shadows, and doing nothing? Later that afternoon, Nkem drove to the cafe Lydia's mother had casually mentioned. She didn't dress like herself. She threw on an oversized hoodie, wrapped her scarf tight, and entered that cafe as a stranger. Inside were teens, loud, laughing, slouched over their phones and drinks. At first glance, nothing seemed sinister. But then she noticed the booths. In one, two boys sat facing each other, exchanging something under the table, small boxes. Another corner had a kid with two phones, one earbud in, scanning QR codes from a tablet. It wasn't just a cafe. It was a marketplace. And Max had been part of it. That evening, Nkem sat in her living room, laptop open, audio recorder running. She had one mission: to find proof. Not theories, not assumptions, proof. She dug deeper into the cloud archive. Deeper than she thought she ever would. And then she found a hidden folder labeled Vault 99. Inside was a video. She clicked it. It wasn't filmed by Max. It was filmed by someone else, maybe one of his friends. The angle was shaky, the lighting dim, but the sound was unmistakable. 3 teenage boys stood at a street corner. One of them was Max. They weren't laughing or joking. They were negotiating. A much older man walked up to them, tall, mid-40s, carrying a black duffel bag. The man looked out of place. Nervous. "You have the rest of it?" the man asked. "It's all there," Max's voice replied. The man handed over the bag. The camera zoomed slightly. Inside the bag were wrapped boxes. Phones. Gadgets. New sealed. Max checked one, nodded. "Next drop, same place," Max said. The video ended. It didn't feel like kids messing around. It felt like a supply chain. Nkem sat frozen, stunned at the level of coordination. At the way her son had led the conversation. Not a sidekick. Not a follower. A leader. And suddenly, the text she'd found before made more sense. The anonymous usernames. The Telegram group. The aliases. This wasn't just petty mischief. Max was running something. Something organized. Something hidden right under her roof. And she had missed it. Nkem knew she couldn't unravel this alone. She called her cousin, Tolu, a digital investigator working freelance for civil agencies. She hadn't seen him in months, but if anyone could trace what she'd just uncovered, it was him. Tolu came over the next morning, laptop in hand, energy sharp. He watched the video. Reviewed the chat logs. Pulled out software that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. After an hour, he looked up, serious. "These boys are smarter than most criminals I track." "How bad is it?" Nkem asked. "Bad enough that if this got into police hands, they wouldn't just call you for questioning. They'd arrest Max as an adult." She stared at the floor. "But he's just 14. Tolu shook his head. "Doesn't matter. You sell stolen electronics, that's organized theft. You traffic it through crypto? That's laundering. Can you trace the man from the video?" "Already working on it." By evening, Tolu had run facial recognition, cross-checked delivery logs, and found a name. The man was a former logistics officer from a failed electronics warehouse that had been looted 6 months ago. Somehow, Max had tapped into an underground resale ring. And he was doing it using school friends, neighborhood contacts. Even using his mother's own Wi-Fi to hide behind residential IPs. The betrayal stung again. But this time, Nkem felt something else rise inside her. Resolve. That night, Nkem didn't wait for Max to sleep. She sat him down. No shouting. No anger. Just silence. Heavy, crushing silence. He squirmed at first, then tried to smile. "What's this about?" She opened her laptop. Pressed play on the video. Watched as his face went pale. "Mom?" She held up her hand. "Don't speak. Just watch." She showed him the chat logs. The transaction receipts. The photos. The Telegram group. She read his words out loud. Each one slowly. Clearly. "She's a puppet." He looked away. "I didn't mean." "You meant every word," she said. "And you knew exactly what you were doing." He broke. Started crying. Not crocodile tears, real ones. And for the first time in weeks, she saw her son again. The scared boy behind the swagger. The child behind the criminal. "Why, Max?" He sobbed. "Because I felt invisible. Dad's never home. You only talk about church. I wanted power. I wanted control. So you lied to me." "Yes. You used me. I didn't think it would go this far." She sat beside him. Not with pity, but with clarity. "You went too far. But I'm not turning you in. Yet." What are you going to do?" She looked him dead in the eye. "We're going to fix this. Together. From the inside out." Nkem knew she couldn't unravel this alone. She called her cousin, Tolu, a digital investigator working freelance for civil agencies. She hadn't seen him in months, but if anyone could trace what she'd just uncovered, it was him. Tolu came over the next morning, laptop in hand, energy sharp. He watched the video. Reviewed the chat logs. Pulled out software that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. After an hour, he looked up, serious. "These boys are smarter than most criminals I track." "How bad is it?" Nkem asked. Bad enough that if this got into police hands, they wouldn't just call you for questioning. They'd arrest Max as an adult. She stared at the floor. But he's just 14. Toulouse shook his head. Doesn't matter. You sell stolen electronics, that's organized theft. You traffic it through crypto? That's laundering. Can you trace the man from the video? Already working on it. By evening, Toulouse had run facial recognition, cross-checked delivery logs, and found a name. The man was a former logistics officer from a failed electronics warehouse that had been looted 6 months ago. Somehow, Max had tapped into an underground resale ring. And he was doing it using school friends, neighborhood contacts. Even using his mother's own Wi-Fi to hide behind residential IPs. The betrayal stung again. But this time, Nkem felt something else rise inside her. Resolve. The next morning, Nkem stood at the edge of the school gate, watching Max walk inside like nothing had happened. He'd slept in silence the night before, his eyes swollen, his shoulders slumped. He hadn't said a word during breakfast. Neither had she. But Nkem was watching him differently now, not just as a mother watching her son, but as a woman trying to trace a story unraveling from its core. Because now she wasn't just afraid for her son. She was afraid of him. As she stood near the school gate, another mother approached her quietly, scanning the environment before leaning in. You're Max's mother, right? Nkem nodded cautiously. My son was friends with him. They don't speak anymore. Why? Nkem asked. He came home crying one day. Told me Max said if he ever opened his mouth about the group, he'd regret it. Nkem froze. Did he tell you what the group was? No, the woman said. But I read one of the chats. Something called Sons of the Hustle. They said they don't tolerate rats. The woman looked genuinely concerned. Then she leaned in further. One boy was transferred to another school. I think his parents found out something bad. That word stuck to Nkem's bones. Bad. Not mischievous. Not rebellious. Bad. That afternoon, Nkem made her way to an old friend, Chuka, a retired cybersecurity expert who now taught part-time at a polytechnic. He'd once been the best man at her wedding. She didn't call ahead. She simply showed up at his workshop with a flash drive in one hand and a determined look in her eyes. Chuka took one look at her face and knew this wasn't a social visit. She plugged in the flash drive. Inside were the same videos, chats, and screenshots. But what she needed now wasn't confirmation. It was exposure. I need you to trace the admin of the group. Not just Max's role. I want to know who's really behind all this. Chuka leaned back in his chair. You're not just trying to save your son anymore. You're going to blow this whole thing open. I'm tired of bandaging wounds. I want the knife gone. Chuka nodded and got to work. Over the next 2 hours, he traced the Telegram group's history, bounced between hidden server logs, and decrypted the code. And then he paused. There's someone else running this, he said slowly. And it's not a student. What do you mean? The original group was created using a burner line registered to a man named Alyamide Bako. He's 27. He was expelled from university 2 years ago. Arrested once for fraud. Never charged. Nkem's mouth went dry. What's he doing with children? Using them, Chuka replied. And doing it brilliantly. That night, Nkem sat on her bed and stared at her wall. Her son hadn't just lied. He'd been recruited. The next morning, Nkem walked into Max's room before he left for school. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She simply said, I know who recruited you. Max froze. Turned slowly. I don't know what you're. Alyamide Bako. His eyes widened. That one look told her everything. He collapsed onto the bed like a balloon that had finally deflated. He said we weren't doing anything wrong. Just moving things. And he paid you? With crypto. And power. And validation. Said we were building something. Nkem sat beside him. And what did it cost? He didn't answer. She pulled out her phone and opened the voice memo she had prepared that morning. In it, Alyamide's voice was crystal clear. A recording Chuka had pulled from a past group session. Don't worry about your parents. Their generation is fading. You're the new world. You're the ones who take, who flip, who win. Max listened. His face slowly contorting into something between shame and confusion. He doesn't care about you, she said softly. You're just a pawn. I thought I was building something, Max whispered. You're a prison. Max cried again. But this time he didn't hide it. For 2 days, Nkem didn't speak to anyone about the case. She went about her day. Clean. Watched the rain. But in the quiet, something was growing. A resolve. An idea. Because silence, when held long enough, becomes soil. And Nkem had planted enough pain inside her walls to grow something dangerous. She reached out to 3 other parents: the mother who had whispered at the gate, an aunt who had once warned her about online games, and a father who used to teach Max in Sunday school. She told them everything. They were horrified. But more than that, they were ready. Because all of them had seen signs. And all of them had done nothing, until now. Together they formed a coalition, unofficial but focused. Within 48 hours they gathered a list of names. Chuka helped build the case file. Tolu traced crypto payments. One mother tracked real-time screen activity on her son's device using monitoring software. They had evidence of recruitment, money transfers, video confessions, even physical meetups disguised as study clubs. What started as a phone call Nkem hadn't meant to hear had become a movement. It all came to a head one humid Friday morning. The coalition had gathered at the headmaster's office. An emergency parent committee had been called under a vague pretext: cyber safety concern. Nkem stood at the front, her voice calm, her notes in hand. She told the story. Not as a victim. Not even as a mother. But as a witness. She spoke of the Telegram group. The threats. The recruitment. The shame. The money. She played a few audio clips. Displayed screenshots. Froze the room. Parents gasped. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others cried. One mother stormed out in tears. The headmaster looked pale. "We didn't know," he stammered. "That's the problem," Nkem said. "None of us did. Because we weren't looking." Later that evening she came home to Max. He was sitting on the floor folding socks. Something simple. Something human. He looked up. "Did you report me?" "Not yet." "Why?" "Because I wanted you to see the mirror before the police did." He nodded. "Thank you." She sat beside him. "We're not done. This isn't forgiveness. This is the first of many repayments." "I know." Outside, rain fell against the windows. But inside, for the first time in weeks, there was no storm between them. Just quiet. For 2 weeks, nothing moved. It felt like the world was pausing around Nkem. She was still doing school drop-offs, cooking dinner, checking in on relatives. But behind every smile and "I'm fine" was a mother waging a quiet war with herself. She hadn't turned Max in. Not yet. But she hadn't protected him either. She'd gone public, if not in name then in structure. She and the other parents had sent an official anonymized report to the Ministry of Education, along with digital evidence Chuka had compiled and Tolu's traceable money logs. It had only been a week since the meeting with the school board, but word was spreading. Quietly. In whispers. In glances. Students started getting pulled out of class. Some were suspended. Others were sent for psychological evaluation. And although Max hadn't been named, he knew. He could feel it. He started staying up late, not to text or trade, but to sit in silence at the dining table long after dinner, lost in thought. Nkem would pass him by, offer him tea, and he'd just nod, but say nothing. And one night he finally broke the silence. "You know they're going to come for me too, right?" Nkem didn't look away. "I know." "You're not going to stop them?" "I stopped protecting you the day I realized protecting you meant betraying myself." He didn't cry. He didn't argue. He just nodded and whispered, "Okay." They came on a Thursday afternoon. Plainclothes investigators from the Cybercrime Prevention Task Force. Respectful. Courteous. But firm. They didn't break down the door. They didn't handcuff anyone. They simply asked Nkem to confirm. Was her son involved in a digital network suspected of coordinated theft and cryptocurrency laundering? She looked them in the eye. Yes. They asked to speak with Max. She called him downstairs. He didn't panic. He didn't beg. He simply stood there, facing the 2 officers with his hands behind his back like someone accepting the inevitable. They asked to search his room. He nodded. What they found confirmed everything. More chats, names of handlers, and even drafted code for a mobile app the group had been designing. It wasn't a game. Max had been trying to scale it. As the officers left with the devices, they explained that Max wouldn't be arrested, yet. He was a minor, and the department would be focusing on the adults behind the system first. But he'd be under monitoring. Supervised reform. It was both relief and heartbreak. He wasn't in handcuffs, but he wasn't innocent anymore. That night, Nkem sat on the floor of her bedroom, holding one of his old baby shoes. When did you stop being the boy who cried during cartoons? When did the world teach you that lies were sharper than love? She had no answers. Only silence. And the weight of reality. By now, the ripple effect was undeniable. The anonymous report had gone viral within institutional circles. Schools were forwarding internal memos. Churches were hosting emergency youth sessions. The press hadn't broken the story fully, yet, but journalists were sniffing around. And every parent in that coalition knew the same truth. The adults had been asleep for too long. The most damning revelation came on a Sunday evening. One of the mothers, Jimok, messaged the group chat with a bombshell. My son said the recruiter used to come to the youth center. Our youth pastor. He was the bridge. Nkem stared at the screen in disbelief. Not because she couldn't imagine it, but because she absolutely could. Charismatic. Young. Tech-savvy. Always encouraging teens to be independent thinkers. The signs had been there, but buried under layers of charm and spiritual phrasing. That evening the group decided it was time to go public. No more anonymous reports. No more silent prevention. They would host a town hall. Not for revenge. Not for exposure. But for accountability. They partnered with a local NGO that specialized in youth rehabilitation and digital ethics. They drafted invitations. Sent open letters. And within days word had spread. Over 300 parents RSVP'd. What was happening? The whisper had become a roar. The hall was packed. Not in a chaotic way but in the way grief gathers in community. Parents sat beside each other with wrinkled brows and crossed arms. Teachers lined the back wall. Youth leaders whispered among themselves. Even local politicians showed up, quietly nodding and shaking hands. Nkem stood behind the podium. She wasn't wearing makeup. No jewelry. Just a plain white blouse and jeans. She didn't speak like a professional. She didn't have stats. No polished slogans. She just had truth. I'm not here to impress you, she began. I'm here because I picked up my son's phone and heard the kind of words that burned through everything I thought I knew about him. And maybe you're sitting there thinking your child is safe. That they would never say things like that. Do things like that. But that's what I thought too. She looked around the room. People were listening. Really listening. This isn't about bad parenting. It's about bad silence. About what happens when we let privacy become permission. When we exchange accountability for comfort. A few mothers were already crying. Some of our children aren't just failing tests. They're passing courses in manipulation, in theft, in exploitation. And they're doing it online in spaces we're too tired or too proud to check. She paused. But we can turn this around. If we're brave enough to confront what's in front of us. And love our children by holding them accountable, not covering them. The applause was quiet at first. Then it swelled. Nkem stepped down. She wasn't a speaker. She was a mother. A mother who had looked her son's betrayal in the face and said, "You won't bury me under your mistakes. We'll rise, but not without scars." There was no applause waiting for Nkem when she got home that night. No flowers. No congratulatory messages or viral hashtags. Just the quiet click of the front door, the hum of the refrigerator, and the sound of Max in the living room, watching a documentary about wildlife. She stood in the hallway for a moment, her bag still on her shoulder, just breathing. The weight of everything she'd carried, everything she'd faced, it didn't disappear but it began to shift. What once felt like a crushing stone now felt like a scar forming. Still there. Still visible. But no longer bleeding. Max turned when she walked in. He paused the documentary. How'd it go? His voice was quiet. Respectful. It went, she replied. People listened. He nodded. He didn't ask if she told them about him and she didn't offer it. Because healing, she had learned, wasn't about exposing everything. It was about owning what needed to be faced and surrendering what no longer served the lie. She sat beside him. For a few seconds, there was nothing but silence between them. Then he spoke. I miss who I was before I started hiding things. Her eyes didn't leave the screen. Hiding breaks people. That's why it feels so safe at first. Like a blanket. But then it starts to choke you. I didn't know how to stop. You're stopping now. He nodded. Then he asked the question she hadn't expected. Do you still trust me? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for the remote, resumed the documentary and said, I trust that you're trying. And that means more to me than pretending nothing happened. 1 month later. Max started therapy the next week. Voluntarily. The school connected him with a digital addiction specialist and a youth accountability mentor. He went twice a week, sometimes quiet, sometimes talkative, but always showing up. Nkem started therapy too. Hers was different, slower. For years she'd learned to mother in extremes. Overprotect or ignore, pray or punish. She had never learned how to sit in the middle. In the stillness. In the confusion. In the gray. One afternoon, her therapist asked, "Do you forgive him?" She paused. "I forgive the boy. But I haven't finished grieving the man I was afraid he might become." That was the truest thing she'd said in weeks. The system response. The cybercrime unit moved fast once the story spread. Alyamide Bako was arrested within 3 weeks of the parents' public testimony. His digital footprint was massive: multiple shell accounts, crypto wallets, fake educational platforms. He had used church networks, youth clubs, gaming forums, even charity drives, all to build one thing: control. The other boys, including Max, were placed on monitored reform programs. Community service, digital literacy workshops, online detox camps. Some parents resisted, but most didn't. Because now, finally, they understood. This wasn't just a bad group. It was a generation slipping through the cracks. And someone had finally lit a match. Not a perfect ending, but a real one. Weeks passed. Then months. Nkem didn't get everything back. She still flinched when she passed Max's room and remembered that call. She still struggled to look at certain family photos where he smiled too brightly. But she also saw him differently now. Not as the boy she had to protect. Not as the teenager who betrayed her. But as a young man who looked his worst mistake in the eye and decided not to become it. He made new friends. Real ones. He started writing short fiction pieces about regret, mistakes, alternate endings. One evening, she found a printed essay on the dining table titled, "I thought hustling made me powerful, until I saw what it did to my mother." She didn't cry. She just folded the paper, placed it in her drawer beside his baby photos, and whispered, "We don't heal in hiding.